Should you buy The Last of Us Part 2 in 2022? It's been over 2 years now since the release of the infamously controversial Last of Us Part 2, and at the time it seemed that absolutely no one enjoyed the game for all of its aspects. I played it about 6 months after its initial release and had an absolute blast, especially after just playing the first game as well. The game holds a story that I believe is extremely well written, a gameplay system that is simplistic yet suffices in the world and atmosphere that the game manages to establish, and is overall quite a fantastic experience. But to see if the game is for you specifically, we'll be talking about the narrative and gameplay, looking at whether you should purchase this game 2 years after its initial release. Of course, as usual, there will be no display or mention of spoilers in this section of the video, and I'll just try to use the trailers for the game's story so I don't show anything too drastic. At this point, I'd be surprised if you didn't know some things within the game's story, but I'll still not be covering those at all in case. Although that is the case, there will be some spoilers for the first game, so if you haven't played that game for some reason, just don't watch this section of the video. The game's story takes place 5 years after the events of the first game. Ellie, who was essentially the second protagonist in the first game in terms of a story and gameplay perspective in the snow section of the first game, she has now taken the role of the protagonist. Ellie is a great character to utilize, as now that she's all grown up, she plays a major role in the settlement built by Joel's brother, as they both live in relative peace within the settlement. Of course, some events do occur, and this leads Ellie on a mission for vengeance, one that truly showcases the horror associated with the obsession of a goal, no matter the cost of anything else. It's interesting to see a beloved character slowly becoming more and more infatuated with the goal that corrupts her to the point she'd give anything just to see the glimpse of some sort of satisfaction that she hopes to achieve by getting her vengeance. It takes a while for Ellie to spiral out of control, but when the point of that hits, she doesn't let anything restrain her, and we see a much more hostile and careless Ellie, opposed to the innocent persona she had portrayed more so in the first game. She becomes a killer, a murderer, and she fights as hard as she can against varying odds. As you may already be aware, there's also a secondary protagonist, Abby. I can't really speak too much upon her character without getting into spoiler territory, but I'll just say this: her development, changing attitudes, and the end of her character arc is brilliantly written as for the player to truly enjoy the fruits of her character, but she's a lot less conventional in terms of writing than Ellie is, and so that might turn off a few players. In my personal opinion, the narrative of the game is excellent, with awesome writing with turns that I personally never saw coming, as the narrative kept surprising and developing in a way that I didn't expect. The game is definitely experimental in its narrative, so it may not work for everyone, but I believe that you just should give the game a go just for its narrative alone. The original Last of Us wasn't a game changer when it came to gameplay, and that remains relatively the same in its ambitious and controversial sequel. Naughty Dog didn't even bother with innovative mechanics in the sequel to one of the best games of the last generation, which is a real shame. One of the main complaints that many had with the original game was the gameplay. It was too easy on its own at times, and while I don't exactly agree on that point, I found the original's play to be a perfect match for the fact that it's more focused on its narrative. But that still doesn't mean I had more than a few issues with the game, and I really think if Naughty Dog had tried, they could have built upon the foundation of the first game and turned it into something really special. But instead, they played it safe again. Perhaps for better or for worse, there's still no excuse as to why they haven't at least tried. But it's not exactly surprising, since Naughty Dog hasn't been known for making many games with highly engaging gameplay over the past decade, and games like the Uncharted series are a direct source of evidence of that. It's not complex, and it's a bit disappointing. Of course, the appeal of Naughty Dog games today is not that they know how to create an amazing platform with addictive gameplay, but that they focus more on the cinematics and narrative presented in their games. Some easily fixed issues with the first game were that the collection system wasn't the best, the crafting system and some of the cover-based shooting just seemed outdated and so stereotyped they just got frustrating at times, and that's a recurring problem in one of Naughty Dog's other series, Uncharted. We all know that Naughty Dog and the talent that creates and nurtures these games for us is more than capable of making an engaging and immersive game, but if you focus more on sound design, cinematography and storytelling of a game, then the actual gameplay portions of the game can suffer. Combat's the main factor here, and it's actually pretty fun despite some of the more outdated features of it. You either use your various firearms or fight with the many melee weapons in the game, but of course, just like the first one, you can only use them a certain number of times, usually 4 to 8, but that largely depends on which type of weapon it is and also some of the upgrades you can obtain. The guns also feel good, and the fact that many of the guns in the game have a lot of limited ammo makes every fight feel like a fight for survival. It It is interesting to know that the only time you use a shotgun or a hunting rifle is when you cannot escape a fight. It makes fights more engaging, and you cannot abuse firearms like many other shooters out there, making it identical to its predecessor. But one aspect of the guns that improved in this game is the variety and quantity of those guns, with better options on what to use when fighting a specific enemy or zombie. It's fun to switch between pistols, shotguns, flamethrowers, and rifles to find the right weapon to take out any enemies that come your way. Of course, the other main factor of the game is the stealth, which is just as much a part of the sequel as it was in the original, but it's been expanded, and many features that should have been present in the game stealth in the original are now here, with the ability to lie down, hide in grass, hide under cars, and methodically get out of certain areas to find out or find ways to an enemy in order to bring them down brutally and stealthily. I love the stealth in this game. It's so intense, so vicious, so cunning, and takes all the right steps for it to ensure that the game still swims in its authenticity of how the rest of the game works. It doesn't even try to overdo it or make this part of the game too complex, because it knows that even if it were a more complex system, it will not diminish the intensity that is present in the game. Sometimes it can also be quite difficult. The AI in this game is really good. Naughty Dog has developed an AI that has absolute quality, and the quality of the AI is arguably on par with any other aspect of the game, and that's an amazing thing. The AI needs to be smart to ensure that the stealth and general combat as well doesn't feel pointless in this game, and at times this could be a recurring issue in the original. Overall, the gameplay here is fantastic, but nothing too complex. The combat definitely just suffices in what it's trying to achieve, and it does add to the horrifying and drastic nature of the game's narrative and the world around you. Adding simple mechanics such as proning and proper cover systems within the game has ensured that the combat could be more enjoyable and diverse, unlike the first game. The stealth is so much better, and it makes the variety within the many encounters within the game that much more enjoyable. So yes, you should absolutely purchase The Last of Us Part 2 even in 2022 due to all the reasons mentioned throughout the video. It's got an incredibly interesting and well thought out narrative that may not be for everyone due to its experimental nature, but it's still worth a try for everyone. And the gameplay, which adds levels of immersion to a world that is always in danger, making the player always cautious and aware of their surroundings. Anyway, that's all from me for today's video. I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.